The meeting of the Board of Aldermen to order on Tuesday, July 8th, 2025 at 7:30 p.m. in the Aldermanic Chamber, which has been duly noticed in 2 places, including the city's website, in accordance with the requirements of RSA 91A. The prayer will be offered by Legislative Affairs Manager Donna Graham, and Alderman Klee will lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Almighty God, we have the high honor and the serious duty to manage the affairs of our beloved city. Fill us, O God, with a spirit of unity and understanding which enables us to face our multiple problems with a serene mind, with justice and charity for all, so that any and all decisions made by us will always be for the betterment and greater happiness of all our fellow citizens. So help us God. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance, please.
Alderman O'Brien.
Present.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Here.
Alderman Moran.
Here.
Alderman Thibodeau.
Here.
Alderman Govea.
Here.
Alderman Lopez.
Here.
Alderman Sullivan.
I'm here on Zoom remote as I'm on vacation. I'm alone in the room and I can hear you.
Alderman Clemmons. Alderman Senate.
Here.
Alderman Jettie.
Here.
Alderman Tebow.
Here.
Alderman Klee.
Here.
Alderman Dowd.
Present.
Alderwoman Kelly. President Wilshire.
Here.
You have 13 in attendance and 2 absent.
Thank you. Alderman Clemmons did reach out to me. He had a family emergency to deal with this evening. Also joining us this evening is Corporation Counsel Steve Bolton. I'm going to go down to recognition period.
There is none.
Presentation, I'm going to recognize Energy Manager Doria Brown to give a brief presentation on the National Community Power.
Thank you. Oh, I forgot about the Alderman card. Hello, good evening. Thank you all for having me to talk about energy again. Today I'm doing an update on the rates for Nashua Community Power. Okay.
Ms. Grimm, sometimes I give him the mouse, sometimes that helps. I don't know why, but.
Okay. It was, but we looked at it earlier and it wasn't. All right, we're having some technical difficulties. Do you all have the presentation at your desk? All right, so we'll go through it manually. I apologize to everybody who can't see it, but I'll do my best to elaborate very well. So the first slide is just an overview about community power. Community power allows us, the City of Nashua, to purchase electricity from the wholesale market and from electricity suppliers as the default option for the entire community. So we launched our program in 2023 when rates were 22 cents a kilowatt hour. Our first rate was 15 cents a kilowatt hour, and then we went down to 10 cents, down to 8.1 cents, and then back up to 8.7 cents and then 9.7 cents. So we have been very low for a long time. In the last rate period, it was the first time we were ever over the Eversource rate. I'm on the next slide, slide 2, by the way. We set a temporary rate of 8.9 cents to match Eversource in February and March of this year, and then we made the difficult decision to go up to 9.7 cents from March to the end of this month, July 31st. That was to ensure that we could keep up with the cost of supply because we saw some really high wholesale rates in the winter, and it was kind of like eating your broccoli to make sure that an organization can continue to exist. Now, this next rate period from August to January of 2026, our rates for Nashua Community Power will be 13.419 cents for the default rate, 14.119 cents for the Granite Plus rate, 14.819 cents for the Clean 50 rate, and 16.81 cents for the Clean 100 rate. That is 2 cents higher than the Eversource default rate for the same period. Now, I bet a big question is why are we still over the Eversource rate? And that is because in the last rate period, for the first time ever, Eversource was able to take advantage of the wholesale market. And they had a very open position like we did in the wholesale market. And we saw a deficit in our rates because we couldn't keep up with the cost of supply, and we made the responsible decision to raise our rates. They also saw a deficit in their cost of supply, but being a bigger organization, they're able to sit on that deficit a little bit longer. And in this next rate period, they have been guided by the PUC to have a 50% open position in the wholesale market. It has been found that there have been under collection from the utilities and other under collections even before that in the amount of $6.5 million. We have been working in the Public Utilities Commission through our community power program to ensure that customers do not feel the effect of these lower rates that aren't keeping up with the cost of supply and their delivery fees. So I wanted to talk about some wins that we've been having through our community power program. So when Eversource sets really low rates that don't keep up with the cost of supply, they end up with a deficit. And that deficit was going to be applied to delivery fees for all customers. And this is bad because it makes it look like people have really low rates, but at the end of the day, the next rate period, they're going to have even higher delivery fees because they're going to be paying for that deficit because costs didn't keep up with the price of supply when there's an open position on the wholesale market. The Community Power Coalition, the group that we're a part of to run our program, went to the PUC during the rate setting sessions this summer and made the case for utilities to have to apply their under collections from being in the wholesale market to supply rates to make sure that customers like the National Community Power customers don't pay for a deficit from supply from the utilities, and also to encourage the utilities to set realistic rates in the future so that they don't have a big deficit and we can keep up with their rates, which have been extremely low because of this new development. We were able to make the case, and now if you look at the last slide, you'll see a Liberty Utilities rate. It is 14.811 cents, and that is above our rate, and that is because Liberty Utilities had to apply their deficit to their supply rate instead of to delivery fees. And we expect to see that in the future from Eversource, and we expect to be able to compete with them in the next couple of rate periods as they kind of learn the realities of being in the wholesale market like we are. So I'm going to skip to page 7, which is about discretionary reserves. In the rate period from August 2024 to January 2026, we were far below the Eversource rate, and we chose to add a 0.2% adder to the National Community Power rate. And that generated something called discretionary reserves. And these are excess reserves that communities can use to do programs like energy coaching programs, demand reduction, to help community members get access to energy efficiency equipment, and a lot of interesting things. So we did that as a trial. And if you flip to the next slide, you'll see that in that rate period, we accumulated about $190,000 to use towards those sort of projects. And I wanted to present that to you now because it takes a while for accounts to close, and we finally closed the accounting for that rate period. And this is the number that that we now know we've accumulated. So I know that the news that I'm giving you isn't amazing. We're above the utility rate But I do have an optimistic outlook because we're setting healthy rates. The organization that we're a part of is getting in a much healthier financial state, and we have a plan as to how we're going to keep up with utility rates in the future by being active in the Public Utility Commission and in the legislature to ensure that rates are set fairly by the utilities and that customers in Nashua and across the state aren't going to end up paying twice for electricity. And we just set fair and not artificial rates. Yeah, I apologize that I didn't have the presentation to go through with you all, but I'm happy to take questions now if you're willing.
Alderman Clee.
Thank you. I have two questions. I'm going to start with my last and go back, so I'm going to go backwards. So when you refer to the discretionary reserves contribution, this $190,061.14, is that Nashua or is that for the entire
Coalition.
coalition?
That's just for the city of Nashua.
This is just the Nashua
Yep, we
Community
put the
Options.
2/10 of a cent just on Nashua Community Power.
Okay, that's one thing. And when you were talking about you were talking about under-collecting and so on, putting it in layman's terms, they were basically undercutting things like community options and so on, because, as you pointed out, they could buy bigger, they could deal with the deficit because they had more of a cushion. And I don't mean this to sound too negative in a way I do, but trying to be somewhat politically correct. This could be a way of putting these smaller companies such as this one and others out of business where the bigger company can handle that. The loss
Absolutely.
temporarily and then take the loss and put it towards everybody instead of just those that had been buying from them. Is that correct?
Yes. So to further explain it, I think in a simpler way, when you set rates for electricity, the utilities used to be able to get a fixed rate contract for those rates. So they knew exactly how much their costs were going to be. But this isn't something the utilities wanted to do. But the Public Utility Commission has told them that they need to be in the wholesale market for a portion of their load between, I think it's 30% to 100% exposed. So when you're exposed to the wholesale market, you could do really well and get very low prices, or you could be hit with a cold front or really hot weather like we had a few weeks ago, and that's when electricity prices spike to a very high level that can eat all the savings that you had in the past. And with the way that the rate periods are set, you're guaranteed to have a cold snap in one rate period and an extremely hot snap in another. So it's hard to realize the savings there, especially if you're not able to pull your electricity load on and off the wholesale market in a more dynamic way. So what they're doing is for the entire 6-month rate period, they have a certain percentage market exposure. I think currently it's 15% or 50%. And because they're 50% exposed, they don't know what 50% of their costs are going to be. And it's very likely that the rates will be higher than what they have set, that 11 cents, because of things that are going on in the world and because of potential cold snaps. And because they set rates lower, they can't keep up with the cost that they have to buy that supply from the wholesale market. So that's where the deficit lives. So you're selling it for 11 cents, it's costing you 15 cents. Now you have a deficit there, which can be very big for large customer groups like the city of Nashua and other groups that Eversource serves. And they wanted to take that deficit and put it towards the delivery fees and electric bill. So forget supply, put it in the delivery fee, and that is spread across all customer bases. And if they were to do that, it would encourage them to set unrealistically low rates and then have people pay twice unknowingly for electric supply and their delivery fee in the following rate period. And that would hurt groups like National Community Power and the Community Power Coalition, as well as the entire third-party supply market in New Hampshire.
May I?
Alderman Clee.
Thank you. Again, just for the listening public, when we talk about delivery fees, every person using electricity pays that delivery fee, whether we're using community options or not. Eversource charges all of us the delivery fee. So when they spread that 3 cents, as you said, 11 cents versus 14 cents. They
Yep,
spread
and
that
that
3
was
cents. I
hypothetical.
know, I'm just saying hypothetically, they spread that amongst all customers. We're paying the savings that they passed on to their customers. Everybody's paying that. Is that correct? The way it
Yes,
happened?
yes.
Thank
And
you.
that's what we're working on stopping in the Public Utility Commission, and why we continue to feel like we're having wins in our community power program, because we're stopping that kind of double paying for electricity.
Thank you for doing that.
Alderman Tebow.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So last time you came before us and you went over this, I had asked a question because after March or whatever, the rate was going to go up a little bit more than
Yes.
Eversource. And I said, well, what stops me from just changing and, going back to Eversource? And you had kind of said, well, it's better if we kind of hold out a little bit, try to stay with community power because it'll be better for us, later on. Now I got to tell people, you're going up 2 cents.
Yes,
That's a lot tougher to deal with because, over the last couple of years, I'd say, yeah, okay, I get it. Your taxes are going up a little bit, but guess what? We're going to save you some money on your electricity. So it's not a one-for-one trade-off, but at least we're trying to save you money somewhere else for the city. Well, now we're not doing that. So it's in a world where it's very tough right now to, pay taxes and some of the other costs that are coming down. It's hard to say, people, hold on, just stay with community power, because at some point, maybe January or later on in the year, you'll have a better rate. Well, they can always come back to it if it's still there. But for
Absolutely.
the short term, it's going to be hard to tell people to stick that out, because even I don't really want to stick it out. I mean, 2 cents is a pretty big deal, especially in the summertime where you're blasting air conditioners in every room, So
Yep.
it's I think that's going to be a hard sell for people.
is that a question?
I don't know. I guess not. I mean, how would you respond to, last time you responded by saying, we should probably hang on
Yes.
so we can strengthen this. How would you handle that question now?
So I've been fielding questions from people as we've announced these rates, I think 2 weeks ago. And I've been telling them, if you can't swing it, go to the cheaper rate or look for another third-party supplier. We have never told customers not to do what they view as what's best for them. But I also think it's important to keep in mind that that 11-cent rate quite potentially could not be real, and that you're going to pay for that in supply in the future, or at the worst case scenario, it could be applied to all customers and everybody will be paying for those savings in delivery fees. So it's kind of a you pay now or you're going to pay later type of thing. But with the national community power rate, I can tell you the cost of that rate cover the cost of supply, and you're not going to have to pay for it again.
Thank you.
Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Madam President. I concur with my colleague from Ward 8. There's a bread or butter issue, utilities, cost of living. At what point does legislation come forth to roll this back when it gets too much for our constituents? And on top of the rate increases, we're basically saying we have fees that we attach to it to use for energy-saving projects, and then we're defaulting people to enroll in community power. Maybe that we default back to Eversource, and if our rates come back lower, just like they would with another supplier, they would want to contract with the lower supplier. But at a certain point, too much is too much. We were saving, and I know the details of what you're explaining to me, but I have to remember that newspaper is written at a third grade level. Those details are going to be lost on someone who's looking at a bill, and they're just going to see the kilowatt percentage, and that's it. And that's how people react, is with emotion at the level that they are voting with their checkbooks on what's appropriate for them in the city they live in.
Yep. So we are not stopping customers from going to a lower rate. You have a choice. It's called community choice power for a reason. If you see a lower rate, you can go and you can call the Eversource, or you can call the customer service website on National Community Power and switch to Eversource. It is your choice and right to do that. I will point out that we've had lower rates than the utilities for the last 4 rate periods and have provided significant savings in comparison, driving the electric rate down from 22 cents a kilowatt hour in its height, which was extremely high, and I think that there's still value for the National Community Power Program, and those who do not want to pay the 13 cents a kilowatt hour can switch down to the 11 cents. But I do want to point out that I understand that the details of the electric industry in New Hampshire can kind of be lost on some people when they're seeing one rate compared to another. But I think that the reason why the program exists is to improve the lives of ratepayers in Nashua. And we're doing that by ensuring that rates will be set fairly, that we won't see artificially low rates where people are paying twice thinking that they're getting a deal, because I don't think that's what we want for ratepayers. I know I don't want to think I paid 8 cents for electricity, but my delivery fee is now double the cost of the supplied kilowatt hour, which is kind of where we're heading towards if utilities continue to set artificially low rates. So I think the value in the program right now is having that voice in the PUC and in the legislature to stop those kind of things from happening. And program-wise, I think having 2 rate periods where we're higher than the utility shouldn't warrant a complete rollback of a program. I would say allow the program to grow. It's still very much a startup organization. We launched in 2023. It's 2025. It's only been 2 years. And see if we can get those rates back down to be competitive with the utilities, while we encourage residents that can't swing the 13 cents a kilowatt hour to opt to a different supplier, whether it's Eversource or a third-party supplier that might be lower than ours.
Alderman Moran.
Thank you. And I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I'm just, I firmly believe that the government should be in business to provide all these public utilities, but that's been undone. It's been privatized, and it's hard to compete against the private market and the government system that we currently have. It's hard for a municipal government to really offer a service that can compete with these larger companies. And I certainly won't be rolling back or introducing legislation to roll it back. But at some point, people are going to become upset. I've stayed in Eversource. I'm sorry, I've stayed in Community Power, not switched to Eversource, because I believe what you're telling me, that'll eventually come back down. But even for me, there's a limit on when I want to save a little bit more, even if it's only a couple of dollars. But in other people, there's the limit is already
Absolutely.
passed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Alderman Lopez.
It's my personal opinion that anyone who is questioning National Power just has to wait on hold for Eversource for about 10 minutes before they decide to switch. I think there's plenty of additional benefits that this program offers, including reinvestment in green energy that does, come from this program and is reinvested into our city's infrastructure. So I think the program is very valuable. And as much as it is a bread and butter issue for many when they're looking at how to achieve savings, it's also helpful that they can actually access the people who are running it and understand how the program is being run, where larger monolithic utility companies, you don't get that service at all. So I would definitely support it. And I can encourage my constituents, to make the decisions that they have to make. And if they have to make a change, then, they'll have to make the change. But I think many people will see the value of it.
May I say one thing very
Yes.
quickly? I forgot Alderman Moran to address a piece of your statement. And you said that we had an adder on our community power rate. We currently do not have an adder on our rate. We took that off immediately when we knew we would be above the Eversource rate and would never put an adder on the rate to collect additional funds to not deliver savings.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Alderman Jitty.
Thank you. So I understand, the aldermen who are talking about how tough it is for people to be, for some people to be making ends meet right now, and they're looking for the cheapest price. But there are also people who are interested in finding energy sources that are not polluting the atmosphere. And can you speak a little bit about what Community Power offers as far as, what those people can buy from Community Power that would be cleaner?
If you look at page 4, which are the rates for the upcoming rate period, you'll see that we have different products. So Granite Basic is 25.2% renewable energy content, and that's kind of the bare minimum that you have to offer to your customers. And then Granite Plus is 33% renewable energy. Clean 50 is 50% renewable, and Clean 100 is 100% renewable. And those products are for people who want to opt up to a higher rate, but have access to more renewable energy in their portfolio. And in the future, if we are below the utility in a significant amount and do utilize an adder again, those funds can go towards community-based energy projects to help Nashua own more shares in renewable energy locally and further drive down energy rates, as well as help with our resiliency as a community, having energy generated here instead of farther away.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
presentation this evening. We appreciate you coming. Reading minutes of previous meetings, there being no objection, I'll declare the minutes of the special and regular Board of Aldermen meetings of June 24th and June 30th be accepted, placed on file, and the reading suspended. Communications requiring only procedural actions and written reports from liaisons.
Communications have been received from Jennifer Bishop, President, Board of Education, regarding Resolution R-25-171. Communication from M. Welsh, Assessing Manager, regarding House Bill 99 signed into law. Communication has been received from
Madam
Lisa.
Chair,
Alderman
So-
Jettie.
I'm wondering, is Ms. Welsh here with us tonight?
I don't believe so.
Okay, so I have no objection to accepting the correspondence, but I did have a question, and if I could, through you, ask Corporation Counsel a question
Yes.
about this.
Mhm.
So as I looked at, at the memorandum, the memorandum is, basically says that because the legislature passed House Bill 99 and the governor has signed it, so it's now law, that amends the credit, the tax credit that's available for permanent and totally disabled veterans. So under the current, up until HB 99 was passed, there was for veterans who are totally and permanently disabled, the state law said that they would be entitled to a tax credit, and that cities like Nashua could had the option of increasing. I think the state amount is $700, but local cities can increase that between $701 and $4,000, and Nashua chose to increase it to $2,000, so that a permanently and totally disabled veteran in Nashua, if he or she met the requirements, could get a tax credit of $2,000 because of their status of being permanently and totally disabled. In addition to that, all veterans, no matter their disability or non-disability, all veterans are entitled to a $750 credit in Nashua. So a totally disabled veteran in Nashua, up until now, could have got a tax credit of $2,000 plus the $750 for everyone, for a total of $2,750. And now, with this HB 99, they've increased the maximum that cities can offer disabled veterans from $4,000 to $5,000, but they've eliminated the ability for that veteran to get the $750 that everyone gets. So, the totally disabled veteran can choose to get the $750 that all the veterans get, or get the $2,000 that disabled veterans get. But in effect, in Nashua, they're going from $2,750 down to $2,000. And so I didn't have a chance to warn or alert Corporation Counsel that I would be bringing this up. So I don't know if he's prepared to answer it, but I think it's something that we ought to look at. You know, should we increase the local option from 2,000 to 2,750 or some higher number? It will be in view of this, and you know, when that does come up, I hope that you know, we can, you know, be told by the assessing department how many people we're talking about, you know, what would it cost, and is that something we could do? But until then, you know, Corporation Counsel, are you familiar with what I've just said? Have you had a chance to think about that or not?
I don't know whether I'm in a position to say what you should or should not do. That's a decision for the board. But my reading is you could do it. Now, I'll have to spend a little more time to look at what dates it takes effect and which tax year would be available to do it for the first time. But yeah, you could raise it to 3,000, you could raise it to 5,000. You could, you know, that's the decision the board can make.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Clay?
Thank you, Madam President. It goes into effect 60 days after she signs it, and I assume that the tax credit, if I'm not mistaken, took effect as of April 1st. Am I correct on that, or no?
The problem is that it's when it has to be applied for. And we're already past the dates that it has to be applied for 2025, I believe. So that would be one of the things that would be subject to check. But yes, it goes in effect 60 days after passage, but if there's already an application deadline that's gone by, yeah, it'll be effective come next year,
Alderman Clay?
as a practical matter.
Thank you. Yeah, and I agree with that. So I guess my question, and I should have worded it better as a question, would be that, seeing that the deadline for application, even if we were to put something in now, it can't go into effect, the dollar amount cannot go into effect, correct, until next year. So those veterans that are getting it now will lose the 750, is that correct?
Potentially.
Potentially, okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the legislature
Yes.
probably did not anticipate that.
And that's beyond our control, so thank you.
Okay. Yes, please.
Communication has been received from Lisa Foto, Director of Public Works, regarding budget transfer DPW Streets Department to the Parks Department.
There being no objection, I'll accept the communications and place them on file. Without objection, I'll suspend the rules and allow for a communication that was received after the agenda was prepared.
Communication has been received from Sam Durfee, AICP Planning Manager, regarding referral from the Board of Aldermen on Resolution R25-176, relative to the acceptance and appropriation of a donation of $150,000 for park improvements at Park Social and renaming the park Jeff Moran Park.
There being no objection, I will accept the communication and place it on file. Period for public comment relative to items expected to be acted upon this evening. We have 5 people signed up. I'm going to start with Gary Hoffman.
Gary Hoffman, 38 Perham Street, Nashua, New Hampshire. I'm going to be speaking about R25-180 and R25-181, the parent-teacher contracts that will be voted on this evening. I'm urging this entire board to pass both of these agreements. As you know, I'm the president of the Teachers Union, and both of these agreements were bargained in good faith with the Board of Education, and I really want to commend the Board of Education's negotiating team for their collaboration and commitment to reaching this fair resolution. These are both fair but also fiscally responsible contracts that reflect the needs of both our educators and our community. First, I'm going to speak about the teacher contract. The teacher contract represents a 3.76% increase on average over the 4-year period. It also makes significant structural improvements to the current deal. First, it reduces our pay schedule that had 23 steps. It reduces it down to a 20-step schedule. Now, this change is critical for retaining our mid-career veterans, many of whom we've seen leave for better paying opportunities elsewhere. The contract also includes targeted stipends to attract and retain special educators, an area where the district has struggled to fill positions in recent years. Additional highlights include full credit for all prior experience for our school nurses, increased stipends for head teachers that hadn't changed in 20 years, reimbursements for licensing fees for our new teachers, and a significant boost to starting teacher pay. Beginning in year 1, new teachers with a master's degree will start at $53,000, which is a competitive figure that puts Nashua near the top of Hillsborough County. And in terms of total compensation in our area of New Hampshire, for all teachers, only Hollis really is going to have a better deal if you pass this tonight. Turning to our paraeducator contract, we primarily focus squarely on compensation. Our paras were long overdue for a meaningful raise, and this contract delivers. In year 1, pay increases for all our paras are going to be $2 across the board, not including step increases, followed by $1 increases in years 2 and 3. Now, while I'll be the first to say that this doesn't fully reflect the value of their work, it's a major step forward towards a living wage and a significant improvement over past agreements.
30 seconds.
My hope is that this contract will actually save the district money because, as you know, the district has had a lot of vacancies for paras in recent years, which has required the Nashua School District to pay for expensive contract paras that are far more expensive. Passing these contracts tonight will send a powerful message to educators and support staff who serve Nashua students every day. Their work will be seen, valued, and supported. I urge all of you to pass these agreements. Thank you.
Fred T-Boom?
My name is Fred T-Boom, 24 Cheyenne Drive. Often members in this board say we have no control over labor costs. Well, here's an opportunity to have control over labor costs. In particular, I want to address R25-180 teacher's contract. That teacher's contract represents $486 million over 4 years. It's the largest contract you'll ever sign. Consider. There's $308 million direct charges and $178 million overhead charges, which means that the overhead is 58% of direct costs. So for every dollar in salary you pay, there's an additional 58 cents of overhead. That's a very high number. The direct pay in teacher average over the 4 years is $77,000 per teacher. And loaded, it's $122,000 per teacher. Oh, that's very high numbers. The teachers are paid for 184 days. It's in the contract, 180 pupil days and 4 additional days. They serve 7 hours per day per the contract, 7 hours. That represents 1,288 hours per year. 184 times 7. An average pay for an average person, not being a teacher, working in the workplace, works 80 hours per year. It's a standard number you use when you calculate burden rate. That means a teacher's pay works 62% of the average work week. There are 36 separate cost items in a contract, such as pension, longevity, salary, health, dental, sick leave, bereavement, personal days, class size, sabbatical, etc., etc., etc. 36 cost items. Those are items that cost borne by the taxpayer. Finally, the salary schedules.
30 seconds.
Very strange schedules. In the early years, the average pay is around 3.5%. In later years, going up to 20, the pay increase goes from 13% on the A2 schedule to 19% on the A3 schedule to 26% increase annually in the third or the A4 schedule. The peak service years are very strange.
Time is up.
Vote this thing down. Start saving some money. Stop spending so much money.
Paula Johnson?
Good evening. My name is Paula Johnson. I live at 15 Westbourne Drive. Tonight's the right night that I can talk about R-25-175. I know I made my pitch the last meeting, but then again, I don't back down on anything. I won't be here tonight to see the vote, but I'm pretty sure what the vote's going to be. You won't have a big discussion on it because it's not a parking meter, and it has nothing to do with stop sign. It's $3,275,000, so we'll go through pretty quick. I have to return back to work tonight, so I just came in here to speak on this. How can you vote on a resolution for a bond that you don't have all the information? There should be amendment that you should remove $780,000 from it and have the bond $2,495,000. And the reason I'm saying this because you don't know what you're buying with that $780,000. It could be a Caterpillar, it could be a John Deere, it could be a Volvo. We don't know, and we don't know the cost. And for an alderman to say, hey, if we don't use the money, because I went back and I listened to it, if we don't use the money, we can use it for something similar, not use it at all. Well, we know you're not going to just let the money sit there and not use it. Come on, your government, you're going to spend all our money no matter what. That money will be used for something similar or something. And so to vote on this and not to amendment, this is irresponsible of this board. The director was here. She could not identify the vehicle for $780,000. That's a lot of money. We're bonding everything. We're only supposed to be bonding $25 to $30 million a year. That's what Mr. Cummings said, and I heard Mr. Solomon said, and they talked about it at the new middle school one night that we were there. So how much money have we been bonding at this point in time? What is the price tag that we keep bonding? Everything's a bond. And people have to realize you have to pay this back. It's like a mortgage. You're mortgaging the future of this city every time you get this bond. It has to be paid back. 10 years. A vehicle does not appreciate, they depreciate. And why don't we ask what are they doing with all the old vehicles once they retire them? This is going to be an end dump truck. What happened to the other end dump truck? What happened to the other vehicles? And then we're going to talk tonight. There's a new communications
30 seconds.
that is going to talk about. We're going to build a wastewater facility and a new garage there, and we're already going to put a garage at the landfill, the bond that we have to tear down. But we never talk maintenance on the vehicles, and we never talk maintenance on the facilities. And I hope you're going to amend this and remove that $780,000 because we need transparency and we need truth in this government to tell us how we're spending our money. Thank you. I have to go back to work now.
Brad Westgate?
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. My name is Brad Westgate. I'm a lawyer with Weiner & Bennett, 402 Amherst Street here in Nashua. I represent Blaylock Holdings LLC, which, as you know, is the project developer for the Mohawk Tannery redevelopment. Here to speak briefly regarding R 25-166. First of all, I just want to thank the board for the many actions it's taken with respect to this project over more than a couple of years now. It's been very much appreciated. The board will remember that one of the actions it took was approving a purchase and sale agreement by which Blaylock would buy about 4.42 acres of the right-of-way of the Veterans Memorial Parkway. This is the entrance point, if you will, to the Tannery redevelopment site. That agreement also contemplates a short-term lease of that land for 2 to 3 year period commensurate with the remediation time frame. The resolution before you tonight, R 25-166, is somewhat of a technical matter, but it involves the fact of the leasing of this portion of the parkway. There are several easements that this project contemplates, one of which is an easement for access down what will be the new main road into the parkway site from the parkway over this 4.4 acres and over to land that's owned by Tamposi entities. That was always contemplated as part of the sort of project planning for the redevelopment of the Mohawk property. There's also another easement and many others, but one other is sort of the core easement for access and utilities into the site. In any event, the R 25-166 would authorize the city to join in the granting of that easement because we have to create the easement up front, if you will, when the closing occurs on the acquisition of the site. But we won't have owned yet the underlying ownership, if you will, what lawyers call the fee, in the 4.4 acres. So for the easements to be fully created, the city would join in the granting of those easements, and that's what this resolution does. The city doesn't absorb a financial obligation in joining the easement, nor obligations to do any construction. This has gone before infrastructure a couple of times. There was an amendment done to it, as you'll see in tonight's copy of the resolution. It went to the planning board once as well. The amendments take care of what we discussed at infrastructure at the second time. Recommendations were favorable, and we would respectfully request that the board approve the resolution tonight. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Lloyd Geisinger?
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. My name is Lloyd Geisinger. I'm the president of Thorndike Development, and along with Bernie Plant, the managing partners for Blaylock Holdings. In connection with this easement, I thought it was appropriate to give an extremely brief but important update, and that is last week we received the 100% approval from the EPA. This is a major, major milestone, 3 years in the making, thousands of hours. I cannot thank enough Tim Cummings, Matt Sullivan, Celia Leonard, the entire Nashua team that has met with us literally every other week for the last 2.5 years. So a tremendous accomplishment. This is, in effect, the final approval required from the EPA in order for us to start work. There are a number of very technical submissions that need to be made that are consistent with starting construction. That will take a couple of months, but we have every expectation of being fully under construction this fall. We are fully funded at this point. That was no easy task. This really represents, we believe, the final piece of the puzzle that we need to bring before the board. As I'm fond of telling everyone, all of this gets us to the starting line. It's not the finish line. And of course, I'm sorry Bernie couldn't be here this evening. He had another commitment. But it's 10 years that he's been working on this with the city, really an extraordinary commitment. We've been at it for almost 3. And I just wanted to make sure that I came here this evening and thank the entire board for their efforts.
Thank you. Okay. Communications requiring final approval. I'm going to call on Alderman Klee, who chaired the Finance Committee, to give an oral report on that meeting.
Thank
Alderman
you.
Klee?
Thank you so much, Madam President. There are a number of items that are going to appear on tonight's agenda, and I'm just going to go through those few from the Finance Committee that are coming forward to tonight's agenda. And one of those is a 5-year contract for the leasing of postage machines at City Hall for National Fire Rescue and Department of Public Works to Quadrant Leasing USA Incorporated in the amount of the $23,000, almost $24,000. It's an annual contract of little under $4,700 annually, and it has to be brought forward because it is a 5-year contract. We need to upgrade these machines. It takes care of all outgoing mail. The U.S. Post Office has put in new requirements, and that is part of the reason for this change and so on. And this is the 5-year leasing contract of these new machines. The next item is a 3-year contract, again, a multi-year contract, which has to be brought forward to the Board of Aldermen for services for the city's landfill covering for fiscal year 26 to 28. The annual cost is not to exceed $220,000. This again, I said, this is for the engineer. Mr. LaFleur came and spoke to us. He spoke to us about how the air, groundwater, and so on will be monitored as part of this process. And this contract does, in fact, pay for the engineer themselves. We've been working with this particular contractor for 16 years. The next item that will be brought forward and on the agenda is another 5-year contract for the maintenance of 2 Ingersoll Rand brand air compressors with Ingersoll Rand in the amount of $15,371.13. This is part of the wastewater fund. Again, it's a multi-year contract. Not last, just a couple more here. The next one that we have is, or I should say the next 3 are part of the Riverwalk a project. This particular one is for $17,000 for some signage and so on. This particular thing is only for the electrical engineer. This is not for the structures. It is not for that. When Director Hannum came and spoke to us, she spoke to us that we need the electrical engineer to make those connections of the equipment and so on, and that's what this $17,000. Normally, a $17,000 item would not be brought forward, but because this is over $1 million multi-year contract that we are working with, it needs to be brought forward to the Board of Aldermen, as will be the next 2 items. The next one is a change order number 2 for Moran's Landscaping. This one here reads and talks about a takeout window. And we had a lot of discussion about this quote-unquote takeout window for a particular business that is going to be part of this new walk. The city is not putting in this takeout window. It is located at the building that is now where Chicken and Chips is living. Whether or not they put in the takeout window is really up to them. But what the city is going to do is, originally we were going to be putting in plantings and so on in that particular area. The change order is that we will instead be putting in a concrete pad, and then we will be creating a walkway which will make it easier for people from the street to access via that way to the boardwalk in the park. It's a win-win for the city. The building owner that where Chicken and Chips now resides has the ability to put in a takeout window if they want for that particular business and future business, but again, the city, the taxpayers are not paying for that. This $30,000, there's a $30,000 fee that is connected to this $275,000. I'm sorry, the amount of this particular thing is for $275,444, but the biggest controversy was this $30,000 fee for this pad and this new change. This also talks about a $100,000 credit for unused contaminated soil, and that was because as they were looking through the digging and so on, they anticipated having more contaminated soil than they did. Luckily, we didn't, but what we did find was we didn't have enough appropriately aggregated soil, so it had to be put in. So this particular motion was for the, in the amount of $275,444.22. The last one, again, is also for the riverfront project, and that is to, this is going to be, there is a wall that is behind where currently the hidden pig is, and it is a long brick wall that could lead to a lot of probably negative type of behavior and so on. So what this not to exceed amount of $10,000 is to create a, well, actually I shouldn't say, this is to get bids for what it would cost to create a project, a feature that would be along that wall. This is not the fabrication cost, this is just the cost for coming up with a proposal of any kind of public art and so on that would be family-friendly and possibly interactive and so on. And Madam President, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Communications requiring...
Madam President?
Oh, I'm sorry. First, I have Alderman Govea.
Thank you, Madam President. That was very well put. Just one small thing on the change order 2.
Oh,
It was
sorry.
USA Chicken and Biscuits, not chicken and chips.
Oh, sorry, thank you.
Good call.
Thank you, I appreciate the clarification
worries.
on that.
Alderman Lopez?
Same observation, because I wasn't at the meeting, but chicken and chips is almost always, so. Heck of a
You're
drive.
making me
I got my
hungry.
chicken
But I know
place you
U.S.
could-
Chicken's super popular, and they would be welcome.
Thank you so much. I did not want to give people the wrong impression, the wrong street. Thank you.
Communications requiring final approval.
Communication has been received from Mayor Jim Donchis regarding multi-year contract award, postage meter lease.
Alderman Clee.
Thank you, Madam President. At this time, I motion to accept, place on file, and approve a 5-year contract for the leasing of postage machines at City Hall, National Fire Rescue, and the Department of Public Works to Quadrant Leasing USA Incorporated in the amount of $23,492.40, $4,698.48 annually. Funding will be through Department 130 Purchasing Fund, General Fund 54 Property Services. By roll call, please.
You've heard the motion. Is there discussion on that motion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes.
Alderman Moran.
Yes.
Alderman Thibodeau.
Yes.
Alderman Govea.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
President Wilshire.
Yes,
We have 13 yeas, 0 nays.
that motion carries.
Communication has been received from Mayor Jim Donchis regarding multi-year contract award, engineering services for the landfills.
Alderman Govea.
Thank you, Madam President. I move to accept, place on file, and approve a 3-year contract for general engineering services for the City of Nashua's landfill covering FY26 through FY28 at an annual cost not to exceed $220,000. The Sanborn Head and Associates. Funding will be through Department 168 Solid Waste Fund, Solid Waste Fund 53 Professional and Technical Services. By roll call.
You've heard the motion. Is there discussion on that motion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes.
Alderman Moran.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow. I mean,
Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah.
Thibodeau. Sorry.
Take one forward.
Alderman Govea.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
President Wilshire.
Yes,
13 yeas, 0 nays.
that motion carries.
Communication has been received from Mayor Jim Donchis regarding multi-contract award air compressor maintenance agreement.
Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Thibodeau.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to accept, place on file, and approve a 5-year contract for maintenance on 2 Ingersoll Rand brand air compressors with Ingersoll Rand in the amount of $15,371.13. Funding will be through Department 169 Wastewater Fund 55 Other Services. By roll call.
You've heard that motion. Is there discussion on that motion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes.
Alderman Moran.
Yes.
Alderman Thibodeau.
Yes.
Alderman Govea.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
President Wilshire.
Yes.
You have 13 yeas, 0 nays.
That motion carries.
Communication has been received from Mayor Jim Donchis regarding multi-year contract award, lifeguard training certification program.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Thank you, Madam President. Move to accept, place on file, and approve a renewal contract with the American National Red Cross for training 40-plus lifeguards each year in an amount not to exceed $6,000. Funding will be through Department 178 Recreation Fund, General Fund, 55 Other Services. By roll call.
You've heard the motion. Is there discussion? Alderman Clee.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm sorry, somehow I missed this when I gave my oral report. I just want to say very quickly that when this was discussed, the Red Cross is doing this. They require a multi-year contract, which is why we are going into a multi-year contract for this. It's just part of their requirement. But they don't feel that we will be using the full 6,000. They don't think we'll have that many, but we need to do it in hopes that we can fill all of our lifeguard positions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes.
Alderman Moran.
Yes.
Alderman Thibodeau.
Yes.
Alderman Govea.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
President Wilshire.
Yes.
You have 13 yeas, 0 nays.
And that motion carries.
Communication has been received from Mayor Jim Donchis regarding tax increment finance development program, Thornton Tomasetti.
Alderman Clee.
Sorry, I turned the page too quickly. Thank you, Madam President. I motion to accept, place on file, and approve a contract for the design and construction phases for the Riverwalk Gateway signage at Bicentennial Park, Renaissance Park, and column design and construction at the other entrances to the Riverwalk in the amount of $17,000. Funding will be through Department 183 Economic Development Fund, Riverfront TIF Fund, 53 Professional and Technical Services. By roll call. Bless you.
You've heard the motion. Is there discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk call the roll, please?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yay.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yay.
Alderman Moran.
Yes.
Alderman Thibodeau.
Yes.
Alderman Govea.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
Yay.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
President Wilshire.
Yes.
You have 13 yeas, 0 nays.
And that motion carries.
Communication has been received from Mayor Jim Donchis regarding tax increment finance development program, change order number 2 for the Riverwalk Park construction.
Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion to accept, place on file, and approve change order number 2 to Moran's Landscaping for additional lightweight fill, design changes at Bicentennial to include a takeout window, additional lighting, and connections between the boardwalk and parks. This also includes a $100,000 credit for unused contaminated soil in the amount of $275,444.22. Funding will be through Department 183 Economic Development Fund, Riverfront TIF Fund, 81 Capital Outlay Improvements. I'd like to request roll call, and if I could speak to it briefly.
Alderman Moran.
Thank you. I did vote against this at committee. I just disagree on the level of involvement from the community and potentially this board on regards to changing the design to benefit the owners of the building. I know they will be putting in their own takeout window, but we're, basically building the platform for them, for that to be utilized. And I'm overall very excited and generally happy with supporting businesses through public-private partnerships, but I had hoped that we would have more involvement from the community, just looking at GIC and who the owners are, and other connections that they have throughout the city and who they work with. Just for transparency's sake, just a more conversation would have been great for me, but that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Further discussion, Alderman Clee.
Thank you, Madam President. I also want to clarify, I don't disagree with anything that my colleague had to say. I understand his feelings, but I want to make it clear that prior to this change, there was a plan to do plantings and so on within that area. And I don't know if Director Hannum is here, but when that came forward and so on, it was decided instead of doing the plantings that we would do this platform. And as such, the platform itself doesn't have that additional cost of $30,000. The whole change order does, but this actually is a beneficial benefit that it makes it easier to come into the park and so on. But I cannot disagree with what my colleague had to say as far as the benefit of a particular building owner and so on, but I still think it's still a benefit to the rest of the community and so on. So while I don't disagree with him, I hope that you will support this going forward. We also talked about that going forward, that perhaps Director Hannum could speak more to PEDC and even more, and I believe she's also going to be giving more updates to PEDC and other things on projects. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Further discussion? Alderman Senate.
Thank you, Madam President. I arrived towards the end of the Finance Committee meeting, but I had to step out for a moment. Maybe through you to anybody who might have been there. What portion of this 275 is going towards this takeout window platform?
Alderman Clee?
Thank you. $30,000 is what, but we could not just carve out $30,000, and it's not, $30,000 is not the platform. It's hard to, because we actually, there was a proposed amendment to pull out $30,000, because that's the way it was put to us, that this is, $30,000 of it is for this. But the platform itself is not $30,000. It's the pathway, the entire structure of the entrance into the park. I don't see Director Hannum here, but the entire structure into the pathway, into the park through that way is the $30,000 cost, the change and everything else like that. The platform itself is not $30,000. That's just a piece of that piece. So, did I answer your question enough?
Sort of.
I apologize.
No,
Yes.
There's only so much you can do,
Yeah.
You all set, Alderman Senate?
Yeah.
Alderman Lopez.
Not for nothing, but I can see a little bit of value here in addition to adding an amenity to the park. And yes, it would be a for-profit amenity. You're not giving away chicken, but it might be an amenity for events to kind of augment them. But you also would have more direct line of sight from a business watching the park, which I think could be a good thing, especially when it's getting darker. Stuff happens in the park, especially in those areas. And I know with the redesign, it'll be a different model, but it probably will be an advantage having people looking at the spot, even if they're just running a drive-through window or walk-through window, I guess.
Alderman Moran?
Thank you, Madam President. I think part of the Finance Committee piece that kind of highlighted in my point was trying to make the motion to remove the $30,000. Well, the design's already been done. If we said cut that, it would have to be redesigned and cost more money. You see the point of not being engaged and involved, and this is a constant theme with that specific department, and I've had it.
Anything further? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes.
Alderman Moran.
No.
Alderman Thibodeau.
No.
Alderman Govea.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Senate.
No.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
No.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
President Wilshire.
Yes,
You have 9 yeas and 4 nays.
and that motion carries.
Communication has been received from Mayor Jim Donchis regarding Tax Increment Finance Development Program, Riverwalk Public Art Design Services.
Alderman Clee.
Thank you, Madam President. I motion to accept, place on file, and approve a professional services contract for a newly proposed public art feature along the wall of 59 Main Street to Park McDowell in the amount of $10,000. Funding will be through Department 183 Economic Development Fund, Riverfront TIF Fund /70500 Project Contingency. By roll call, please.
For the motion, is there discussion on that motion? Alderman Tebow.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The 10,000 is small money, generally speaking, for something like this, but it sounds like it's going to lead to more money. So, I mean, I'm all for art, believe me, I am, but is this the right time for it? Like, does it hurt not putting something there now? Like, so if we approve this, then we might as well, then we gotta look at, we're putting 10,000 out there where we probably have to, I don't want to say have to take the next step once the money comes forward, but then if we don't, then that money's, that 10,000's gone. So I don't know if I want to support it right now. And I understand what Alderman Clee had said before with the, you know, it obviously it brings attraction, maybe more eyes to that area, all that may be a safety issue. But I just, right now, we're trying to find things that we can be short on, I guess, in money. And for me, this is one, and same thing with the last one we voted on. So that's where I stand.
Alderman Clee.
Thank you, Madam President. Just as a reminder, this is coming out of the TIF fund, first off. And second, I believe that there is a stark brick wall that would potentially have to have something done to it to begin with. And so that's why this was done as a project to look at what could be done to have some type of interaction that it's going to create a safety, family-friendly. The fear is that it's going to become a giant platform for anybody with spray paint or something of that nature that we've seen elsewhere within the city. And I think this stops and creates that.
Alderman Tebow.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I understand the TIF thing. I see it. Will the next piece be TIF? Like, so if this passes and they decide that whatever they put there is going to be $500,000, is that also coming out of the TIF?
Alderman Clee.
I can't not say that 100%, but I'm going to make the assumption that it is, simply because it is part of the Riverwalk project, and that is what the TIF money is for, that specific area. That is what TIF money was meant for, was to take that. They've been collecting the money and so on. So my assumption is, and again, I'm making an assumption, I don't have Director Hannum to say definitely. We don't know what the cost of that project is and so on, but I have to say my best guess would be yes. But I do think that it would be a shame to have this entire project go and that we leave something here and then we end up with some obscenity or something in our Public Works has to keep going and cleaning it, and we spend more money time after time having to undo something that's been put there.
Director Cummings indicated that, yes, it will be coming out of the TIF.
Thank you.
Alderman Tebow.
Yeah, I mean, if we put some mural there or something, it doesn't mean someone won't stop to write an obscenity on it. So I don't see that. And also, I don't see why it can't wait. You know, say it waits till next year or 2 years. Like, I don't see the need, the urgency, I guess. But, you know, I mean, at night, people can do whatever they want at 2 in the morning. You know, it's can happen anywhere, I guess. But I think I'm going to vote no for it.
Alderman Lopez.
So obviously, I'm a big fan of the arts. I would point out that I did a much larger mural over at French Park for like a quarter of this. But it also took me 3 years, so I don't know if they want to wait that long. When it comes to public art, I think new murals do in fact deter most vandalism, and definitely the more dedicated vandals. There is, unless it's a very like inflammatory message, generally speaking, mural artists respect each other, and the more elaborate graffiti artists respect territory as well. They specifically tag areas that are being neglected. To that point, I have actually addressed with economic development and community development for many years that the murals along the rail trail have been heavily neglected, and like if it can be conceived, it has been painted on those walls, whether it's like a very provocative political message or somebody writing to their girlfriend, it's like all on there. So I think there, to some of my colleagues' comments, there are other areas that it would be nice if the city could move on addressing those, but they're not going to be eligible for TIF monies. I do think that it would be good to have something there, but to some of the earlier comments that were made, when you look at the rail trail and you look at the tagging that's taking place on it, one of the exemptions to that is actually the permission wall, because it is a curated, managed, I guess, competition space that literally draws people from all over the country to come and put their tag in a well-lit area on a space that's prepared for them. So that would be probably a much more cost-effective way of maintaining it, but as was pointed out, we wouldn't really have any control over the message, and evidently the methodology for this project is control over all of the stuff. So I don't know that I'm going to support this either. I do support the arts. I do think this is a very important project for bringing people to the downtown area. To be blunt, I don't know who's organizing and who's going to be in charge of the RFP for this, and I don't know that they would represent anything that I or people in the community that elected me would want. So I'd rather see more information before signing off on it.
Alderman Jettie.
Thank you. I don't know if anybody knows the answer to this, but this wall that we're talking about, isn't that private property? And how do we get the, you know, why are we painting somebody else's wall? And, you know, is there some kind of an agreement, you know, that would give us the right to do that, or, you know, if anybody knows?
I don't have the answer. Alderman Moran?
I think it's been, like, the director isn't here to answer these questions. I'm not sure if it's appropriate to move forward, and maybe
I didn't know if the committee had asked the question or got an answer, and, you know, I don't know if Corporation Counsel has an opinion about that, but.
Attorney Bowles?
If it's someone else's building, you need permission before you can paint the wall. Now, if this is supposed to be some sort of sculpture or something that is part of the walkway that is the river walk, then maybe the easement we've already obtained is sufficient. But frankly, tonight was the first I've heard of this during the discussion at the Finance Committee. And that question was not, did not come up during that discussion.
It did not.
Anyone else?
So, Madam President,
Alderman Jettie.
you know, rather than just voting against this, I guess I'll make a motion that it be tabled until we get answers to the questions that have been asked.
Motion is to table. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes.
Alderman Moran.
yes.
Alderman Thibodeau.
Yeah.
Alderman Govea.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
No.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
President Wilshire.
Yes.
You have 12 yeas, 1 nay.
And that motion carries. Petitions.
There are none.
Nominations, appointments, and elections.
There are none.
Reports of committees. There being no objection, I'll declare the report of the May 29, 2025 Budget Review Committee be accepted and placed on file. There being no objection, I'll declare the report of the June 25, 2025 joint meeting of the Committee on Infrastructure and Police Commission be accepted and placed on file. There being no objection, I'll declare the report of the June 26, 2025 joint meeting of the Committee on Infrastructure and the Board of Public Works be accepted and placed on file. There being no objection, I will declare the report of the July 2nd, 2025 Finance Committee be accepted and placed on file. Confirmation of mayor's appointments.
There are none.
Unfinished business resolutions.
Second reading of Resolution R-25-166, authorizing the City of Nashua to join in the granting of an easement for the benefit of MAP 62, Lot 100, and adjacent land in connection with the redevelopment of the former Mohawk Tannery site.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to make the motion to amend R-25-166 by replacing it with the goldenrod copy of recommended amendments made at the Committee of Infrastructure by roll call. And may I speak briefly to the motion, please?
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you. As we heard, if you think back to the beginning of the meeting, we received some additional information. It's the same thing that was presented to the Committee of Infrastructure on this particular project. Excuse me. I hope many of you are like myself. We have waited an awful, awful long time for something positive to happen to this Mohawk former tannery area. And this is one of the things. But keep in mind, there's got to be construction going on there. And we got to think about the good people that live in one of my favorite neighborhoods there is the people in Little Florida. They should not have the dump trucks and everybody else going through their particular neighborhood. So they need easements and grants to get out onto the Veterans Parkway. What you see has before us on this goldenrod, basically, in a nutshell, essentially does that. So this is a vote for a neighborhood. It's a vote to move the project forward, and it's also a vote for the betterment of the city. So I hope you support me in supporting this motion. Thank you, Madam President.
Motion is to amend. Alderman Lopez.
I think if any of the construction vehicles are in Little Florida, they got lost, but Fairmont Street will definitely appreciate not having the truck go through. The neighbors were very, very vocal about that. I think this is definitely a project that's long overdue, and I want to credit the neighbors because they didn't wait. They've been very involved and very vocal advocates for it, particularly Sandy Belknap, and there have been a number of community-based efforts over the years to encourage the city, the federal government, and anybody who would listen to move forward with this. So I'm excited about moving it forward as well.
Motion is to amend. Alderman Clegg.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to echo my colleague from Ward 4's words. The community has been so involved, and they truly did help help with the planning and so on of this project, in that that's why this easement is so important and so needed, is that it stops any kind of vehicles, any kind of trucks, any kind of movement of things through their neighborhood. It keeps everything on the Veterans Parkway. They talked about making sure that everybody would come safe onto the parkway, and so on. So this easement is extraordinarily important.
Motion is to amend. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes.
Alderman Moran.
Yes.
Alderman Thibodeau.
Yes.
Alderman Govea.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
Yes.
Alderman Clegg.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
President Wilshire.
Yes.
We have 13 yeas, 0 nays.
That motion carries. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to motion for final passage of R-25-166 as amended by roll call.
You've heard the motion. Is there discussion on the motion for final passage as amended? I know I'm excited about this project, so it's been a lot of work, a lot of years, and a lot of people involved to make this happen, so. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes.
Alderman Moran.
Yes.
Alderman Thibodeau.
Yes.
Alderman Govea.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
President Wilshire.
Yes.
You have 13 yeas, 0 nays.
That motion carries, and Resolution R 25-166 is declared duly adopted as amended.
Second reading of Resolution R 25-169, establishing a tax-deeded property maintenance expendable trust fund funded by recovery of certain tax sale costs.
Alderman Dowd.
Motion for final passage of R 25-169 by roll call.
You've heard the motion. Discussion on that motion. Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes.
Alderman Moran.
Yes.
Alderman Thibodeau.
Yes.
Alderman Govea.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
President Wilshire.
Yes.
You have 13 yeas, 0 nays.
That motion carries, and Resolution 25-169 is declared duly adopted.
Second reading of Resolution R 25-171, relative to the supplemental appropriation of $400,000 of FY 2025 unanticipated special education local-related revenue into Special Revenue Fund Number 2257, Special Education Local.
Alderman Senate.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion for final passage of R 25-171 by roll call pursuant to Charter Section 49.
You've heard the motion. Discussion on that motion. Seeing none, would the clerk call the roll, please?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes.
Alderman Moran.
Yes.
Alderman Thibodeau.
Yes.
Alderman Govea.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
President Wilshire.
Yes.
You have 13 yeas, 0 nays.
And that motion carries. Resolution 25-171 is declared duly adopted.
Second reading of Resolution R 25-172, relative to the supplemental appropriation of $500,000 of assigned fund balance into Fund 7025, City Retirement Expendable Trust Fund.
Alderman Tebow.
I'd like to make a motion for final passage of R-25-172 by roll call pursuant to Charter Section 49.
You've heard the motion. Is there discussion on that motion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes.
Alderman Moran.
Yes.
Alderman Thibodeau.
No.
Alderman Govea.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
President Wilshire.
Yes.
You have 12 yeas and 1 nay.
That motion carries, and Resolution 25-172 is declared duly adopted.
Second reading of Resolution R 25-175, authorizing the mayor and city treasurer to issue bonds not to exceed $3,275,000 for solid waste department fiscal year 2026 capital equipment reserve fund SURF purchases.
Alderman Dowd.
I'd like to make a motion for final passage of R 25-175 by roll call pursuant to Charter Section 49. I'd like to speak to it briefly.
Alderman Dowd.
I think there's some misconceptions. The three dump trucks are all about the same price, and they're trying to see which one is the better price. So the monies in the bond would cover even the most expensive truck, and it's the intent of the Board of Public Works that if they don't spend that money, it'll just be, come back and be set aside. The bond won't be as high.
the truck that currently exists is being turned in as to get a credit against the new truck they're buying, so they're working that out. That's part of the price they've been involved in. So, and as with any bond that we have excess money on, there's always the capability of this board to either just expire it or use it for something else. We did a lot of that in the past because back in the time, the interest rates were so low that on the bonds that we had extra cash on, it was less expensive to do that than bond at a higher rate for something else. So, but we're not anticipating doing that for this. So this is a piece of equipment that's totally required by the Public Works Department, and so Alderman O'Brien and I attend the Board of Public Works meetings. We've heard all the details on this, and they asked to fully support it.
You've heard the motion. Alderman Tebow.
Thank you, Madam President. You know, citizen that spoke earlier, I mean, she was right. I mean, when we, oftentimes we don't just put that money back into the general fund or the SURF fund or wherever that money would go. We just decide to do something else. So, I mean, that always concerns me. I'm not saying I'm voting against it. I'm just, you know, I don't see what the harm is of waiting, but I'm not going to amend it to change it at this point, so.
Alderman Lopez?
Well, so I suppose we all have to pay our pound of flesh here, because we were told if we don't spend enough time ruminating over this in this meeting, I guess all the other meetings where it was explored didn't happen, and all the city staff that thoroughly researched this didn't do any of that. But I think the city did do plenty of due diligence. I think our board does take these expenses seriously. And with respect to my colleagues' comments, because it's true that often if there's an opportunity to do something similar that we have already gone through the work of developing a bond, we might look at doing that as an alternative to directly putting it onto the budget and, you know, affecting taxpayers. We do it. We do also return bonds. We've done it quite a bit on Joint Special School Building Committee. So I think just saying, oh, big government, all they ever do is spend money and they never try to minimize it is unfair. And I think particularly this is a project that is meant to get ahead of any repairs or replacements before we have to spend more on it. So I think everyone has a right to use the free speech as they choose to in public comment. But I think somebody that speaker who's served on the Board of Aldermen and, you know, on the Board of Education should have known better.
Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Madam President. I concur with my colleague from Ward 8 and Ward 4. It would be a difficult vote. Thank you.
Okay, the motion before us is for final passage. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes.
Alderman Moran.
No.
Alderman Thibodeau.
No.
Alderman Govea.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
No.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Oops. Alderman Tebow.
Okay, yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
President Wilshire.
Yes.
You have 10 in favor, 3 opposed.
That motion carries, and Resolution 25-175 is declared duly adopted.
Second reading of Resolution R-25-176, relative to the acceptance and appropriation of a donation of $150,000 for park improvements at Park Social and renaming the park Jeff Morin Park.
Alderman Tebow.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion for final passage of R-25-175 by roll call pursuant to Chapter Section 49, and I'd like to speak to it.
Alderman Tebow.
It should be a no-brainer. You know, the only concern I had originally was making sure that there was enough nuance between the name of this park and the one at Roby Park, just so like fire and police, somebody gets on the horn and say, hey, get over to Jeff Morin Park, there's something going on, that they don't go to the one that's in Ward 9, which is really more Roby Park at Jeff Morin Fields or whatever. So it's a little, the nuance is there, so I 100% agree with this. Like I said, it should be a no-brainer. Thanks.
Further discussion? Alderman Dowd.
I can verify being on CIC that it meets all the criteria for CIC and was ranked and is in the list that you got today, even though the print was very, very small. But it was approved.
Further discussion. Alderman Lopez.
So with respect to the nuance of the name change, the Park Social was previously named the same name as another park, so we were trying to clear that up. And while there's some similarities to this one, I think it, number one, honors a person that, their story is relevant to the city of Nashua. And then also, the family's contribution is intended to develop a splash pad that the neighborhood really, really needs. These last 2 weeks have been incredibly hot, and Ward 4 particularly, in the Tree Streets area, people don't have a lot of economic means to go travel to other places or visit friends with pools. And it's one of the areas where it's literally a desert. There isn't a city pool within that area. So I think a lot of good will be done just with the changing of a name and the accepting of support.
Further discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk call the roll, please?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes.
Alderman Moran.
Yes.
Alderman Thibodeau.
Yes.
Alderman Govea.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
President Wilshire.
Yes.
You have 13 yeas, none opposed.
That motion carries, and Resolution 25-176 is declared duly adopted.
Second reading of Resolution R 25-177, relative to the transfer of $40,000 from Department 162, Street Lighting, account 54100, Electricity, to Department 159, Hydrants, Fire Protection, account 54835, Hydrant Fees.
Alderman Senate.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion for final passage of R 25-177 by roll call.
You've heard the motion. Is there discussion on that motion? Alderman Thibodeau.
I just had a question as to why, the rationale of moving from between these two departments. I don't know if anybody could answer that.
I don't have that answer. Alderman Dowd?
I believe they had excess money in one account, and they had a deficit in the other account that they had to fill, so this was the easiest way to do it. Beyond
Further-
that, I can't explain anymore, but
Further discussion? Alderman Lopez.
It's their only chance to move something from electricity into a fire hydrant fund, so without explosive results.
Goodness. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes.
Alderman Moran.
Yes.
Alderman Thibodeau.
Yes.
Alderman Govea.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
yes.
President Wilshire.
Yes.
You have 13 yeas, no nays.
And that motion carries, and Resolution 25-177 is declared duly adopted.
Second reading of Resolution R 25-179, approving the cost items of a collective bargaining agreement between the Nashua Board of Education and the Nashua Teachers Union, local number 1044 AFT AFL-CIO, Unit B, paraeducators from July 1, 2025 through June 30th of 2028.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to make the motion for final passage of R-25-179 by roll call.
Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Madam President. I fully support this, and it's about time the paras got paid fairly compared to their private sector counterparts that we've been contracting with. These paras do a lot of work in the school, whether it's helping disabled children who are on IEP to just supporting teachers in the classroom when they need it. They're a key and vital role to the education system, and I'm glad to support this.
Alderman Tebow.
Thank you, Madam President. You know, the I guess the assault on teachers earlier in public comment was just awful. I think these are long overdue, especially with the para. We're the second biggest city in the state. We should be competitive with our teacher salaries. And to be as far down as we've had and to have the vacancies we've had because we can't hire, it's disgraceful. There's been an assault on public education now from the state, and we got to keep it out of the cities. And it's important that we have strong education, and that starts with strong teachers, strong paras. So I fully support this 100%, and yeah, that's all I'm going to say, for all three.
Alderman Dowd?
Yes, all three of these, the next three are contracts for paraeducators, teachers, and custodians. They all went through budget, and they all passed unanimously. I was on the Board of Education for 10 years, and I was the budget chair and president. And I can tell you with the negotiations, I believe these contracts are really outstanding for the teachers and the paras and the custodians, and are physically responsible for the city. So I support them.
Alderman Clegg?
Thank you, Madam President. I'm basically just echoing what my colleagues on both sides of me have said. And I did attend the budget hearing where the conversation and was had about these contracts. And the thing that struck me the most was that all sides talked about how well the negotiations went, how well they were able to work together and come up with something that was fair and equitable. I'd like to think that everybody who walks out maybe has to give up something, but we try to look at it as that nobody really loses. And I think that that's kind of what this contract did. It was trying to be fair. It looked at what's going on. But the biggest thing that I really took from this contract was that they looked at how can we retain teachers, how can we recruit teachers with, I'm sorry, not teachers, paras and so on. But all three of these contracts kind of works to and talks to all of those things. So I'll say what I had to say right now, and then I won't bother you for the next two. Thank you.
Alderman Lopez?
So, I mean, I think this is very important to support. If anybody was watching the budget meetings or having any, input into it, or interacting with the superintendent or the school board, it's fiscal incompetence to just say, okay, let's cut paraeducators that we're required to provide so that we can spend more money on privately paid ones. And that was specifically one of the points that Superintendent Andre made, was that not funding this would be silly, and making sure that our paraeducators are supported and compensated at a level that makes people want to be paraeducators saves us money, because we have to provide the support legally, and we pay more for it through private means. And it was a major factor in how they were calculating the budget earlier this year, which was considerably discussed back and forth. So I think this is a no-brainer as well, and I will support it.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Thank you, Madam President. I agree with all my colleagues. I served on all these committees, and they don't happen overnight. It takes weeks and sometimes months, days and nights to come up with a good contract. I think they did. I think you should support this. We need to continue to support our public education. They're under attack, and to not support this give me reason to believe you don't believe in public education.
Anyone else? Seeing no one, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes.
Alderman Moran.
Yes.
Alderman Thibodeau.
Yes.
Alderman Govea.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
Yes.
Alderman Clegg.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
President Wilshire.
Yes.
You have 13 yeas, 0 nays.
That motion carries, and Resolution 25-179 is declared duly adopted.
Second reading of Resolution R-25-180, approving the cost items of a collective bargaining agreement between the Nashua Board of Education and the Nashua Teachers Union, Local 1044, AFT, AFL-CIO, from September 1, 2025 through August 31 of 2029.
Alderman Dowd.
I'd like to make a motion for final passage of R 25-180 by roll call. I'll talk to it very briefly.
Alderman Dowd.
I mean, anybody that follows the union leader can see that teacher competition in this state is huge. And it's in our best interest, our parents' best interest, our children's best interest to make sure we have qualified teachers. And this is a very good contract for a teacher's contract.
Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Madam President. Just like my previous comments, I will support this completely. I'm of the belief, whether it's public teachers or private teachers, teachers do very difficult work. And we just so happen to be in charge of funding or final approval of public teachers. And I think we need to pay them a fair share and a decent rate. I know there were members of the public who weren't as supportive, but in all honesty, I heard what that person was saying, and I could not see a fault with it. Increased wages, better benefits, I found all those to be positives, and that's something that we need in order to sustain our education system in the city. And we should be valuing our teachers rather than criticizing them, because they have very difficult jobs. They are getting more and more children with individual education plans that are complex and high needs, while they continue to have per pupil funding diverted from them, even on defiance from the state legislature against the Supreme Court. And the burden of those poor decisions at the state fall down to the municipality. And I will support not spending on teachers, but investing in teachers, because it invests in the education of our entire city. Thank you.
Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you very much. I showed up from vacation on Zoom only to vote for these three contracts because I wanted to make sure that my vote was registered for these. I think that going into the budget meeting, I had read an article about teachers' impact on students and the fact that it all comes down to the teacher. And I'm going to put what's been said about what's happening at the state. I mean, those are things that I can't control as a ward alderman, but you know, at the end of the day, paying your teachers, it's just like paying your firemen or your police. I mean, it's city government 101. And I was delighted to hear that all three contracts went through negotiations smoothly, because of the fact that they started the conversations earlier, and I think that's really important, and I'm glad that that happened. So I'm just thrilled to put a yes vote behind all these contracts. Thanks.
Alderman Lopez.
I agree with most of what has been said, although I would note to my colleague who has said that he came here just to vote for these, Fairmont Street, thanks you for your support. I think it's very important to remember also that, education is not only, a determinant of who's going to be leading our city in the next 10 to 15 years, which is important. It's also directly related to our property taxes, our tax values, and the way our city is perceived. So it's an investment in every sense of the word, and that starts with teachers. You can't have a school with just administrators. You have to have the teachers doing the work and educating children. So I applaud this school district and the union for being able to negotiate this so smoothly, and I look forward to supporting it.
Alderman Senate.
Thank you, Madam President. One of the points that was made during public comment spoke to the value of retention and how this contract will allow us to retain teachers. And I agree with everything that my colleagues have said, but retention is a real important piece of the puzzle here, because we can sit and talk about how we want to adequately pay teachers all day, but mechanically you can put a price on a teacher. I think anybody in the room that has children knows that you can't put a price on a good teacher. And it's especially painful when you lose that teacher, whether it's to circumstances outside the field of education or perhaps to a district that is paying better, and so they wanted to go there to make a better living for their own family. My family's had to experience that recently, and thank goodness we had an equally wonderful teacher come in to fill in that gap. But when you have a student that has some of the challenges that Alderman Moran spoke to, and you have that teacher that finally gets them, you can't put a price tag on that, and you don't want to lose them to a district that's going to pay better. So I'm very happy to support this tonight to make sure that the teachers that we have that are making those connections with the students stay here in Nashua. Thank you.
Anything further? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes.
Alderman Moran.
Yes.
Alderman Thibodeau.
Yes.
Alderman Govea.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
President Wilshire.
Yes.
We have 13 yeas, 0 nays.
That motion carries, and Resolution 25-180 is declared duly adopted.
Second reading of Resolution R-25-181, approving the cost items of a collective bargaining agreement between the Nashua Board of Education and the Nashua School Custodian Union, Local 365, Council 93, AFSCME, AFL-CIO, from July 1, 2025 through June 30th of 2029.
Alderman Tebow.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to make a motion for final passage of R-25-180 by roll call, and would like to speak to it briefly.
Alderman Tebow.
Thank you. I find it, by the way, I came here for everything on the agenda. Just that's for Alderman Lopez. And I just want to say that it's, we probably have at least 4, if not more, political parties in this room right now, and maybe even split off in different parties, whether someone's conservative or liberal or in between or progressive, and yet we've all gone unanimous on these 2 contracts and hopefully on the 3rd one here. So I find that funny, because in years past, there's been fights in this chamber over contracts years ago, and we're at a point now where we, even though we don't agree on everything, we agree on this, which is great for people that have been fighting for teachers and paras and custodians for years, and firefighters and DPW and police. So it's great to see that we're on board with these contracts, and I'll 100% be supporting this, so thank you.
Alderman Senate.
Well, thank you, Madam President. Real briefly, not to be necessarily outdone by our paras or our teachers throughout the district, but I feel our custodians oftentimes get the last shake of the stick. But if you've ever done any sort of work in a school, whether it's teaching in the school or attending after hours for sports programs, or heaven forbid working a 14-hour election, you cannot understate what our custodians do for the city day in and day out, whether school's in, whether it's out, making sure that when the snow is falling, the students can get back to school as quickly as possible. I'm sure the night custodian, Dr. Crisp, is never going to forgive me for scaring the daylights out of him when I needed some extra paper during a particular presidential election. But nevertheless, I overwhelmingly appreciate the work that they do, and it's certainly warranted for them to get a fair contract so that we can keep the custodians. Many have been here for decades working in these schools. Thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk call the roll, please?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes.
Alderman Moran.
Yes.
Alderman Thibodeau.
Yes.
Alderman Govea.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
President Wilshire.
Yes.
13 yeas, 0 nays.
That motion carries, and Resolution 25-181 is declared duly adopted. Unfinished business ordinances.
There are none.
New business resolutions.
First reading of Resolution R-25-185, relative to the transfer of $35,000 from Department 194 Contingency, Account 70100, General Contingency, to Department 109 Civic and Community Activities, Accounting Classification 56, Outside Agencies, for the purpose of providing funding to the Nashua Association for the Elderly.
Additional sponsors. Alderman O'Brien, Alderwoman Timmons, Alderman Moran, Alderman Govea, Alderman Lopez. Alderman Tebow, Alderman Clee, and myself. Given its first reading, I'll assign that to the Budget Review Committee.
First reading of Resolution R25-186, amending the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Home Investment Program American Rescue Plan Act Fund Allocation Plan.
Additional sponsors, Alderman O'Brien, Alderwoman Timmons, Alderman Senate, Alderman Dowd, and myself. Given its first reading, I'll assign that to the Human Affairs Committee.
First reading of Resolution R25-187, authorizing the mayor and city treasurer to issue bonds not to exceed $500,000 for the landfill gas expansion project at the Solid Waste Department, Fort Hills Landfill.
Additional sponsors, Alderman O'Brien, Alderman Clee, Alderman Dowd, and myself. Given its first reading, I'll assign that to the Budget Review Committee. And Alderman Lopez, sorry. Board of Public Works, and schedule a special Board of Aldermen public hearing on Monday, July 28, 2025, at 7 p.m. in the Aldermanic Chamber.
First reading of Resolution R25-188, authorizing the mayor and city treasurer to borrow an amount not to exceed $6,192,000 through the issuance of bonds and/or a loan through the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services State Revolving Loan Fund for the wastewater treatment plant Phase 1 upgrades project.
Additional sponsors, Alderman O'Brien, Alderman Moran, Alderman Lopez, Alderman Clee, Alderman Dowd, and myself. Given its first reading, I'll assign that to the Budget Review Committee, the Board of Public Works, and schedule a special Board of Aldermen public hearing on Monday, July 28, 2025, at 7 p.m. here in the Aldermanic Chamber.
First reading of Resolution R25-189, authorizing the mayor and city treasurer to issue bonds not to exceed $3,280,000 for various wastewater capital improvements.
Additional sponsors, Alderman O'Brien, Alderman Dowd, and myself, and Alderman Lopez. Given its first reading, I'll assign that to the Budget Review Committee, the Board of Public Works, and schedule a special Board of Aldermen public hearing on Monday, July 28th at 7 p.m. in the Aldermanic Chamber.
First reading of Resolution R25-190, relative to the acceptance of $39,036 from the United States Department of Justice into Police Grant Activity 2024 Justice Assistance Grant, multi-jurisdictional.
Additional sponsors, Alderman O'Brien, Alderwoman Timmons, Alderman Moran, Alderman Gavea, Alderman Clee, Alderman Dowd, and myself. Given its first reading, I'll assign that to the Human Affairs Committee.
First reading of Resolution R25-191, relative to the acceptance of up to $350,000 from the New Hampshire Department of Safety Homeland Security Grant Program into Police Grant Activity, FY26 Homeland Security Grants.
Additional sponsors, Alderman O'Brien, Alderman Moran, Alderman Gavea, Alderman Clee, Alderman Dowd, and myself. Given its first reading, I'll assign that to the Human Affairs Committee.
First reading of Resolution R25-192, authorizing the mayor and city treasurer to issue bonds not to exceed $4,025,000 for the city's sewer infrastructure improvement and sewer and drain casting replacement programs.
Additional sponsors, Alderman O'Brien, Alderman Lopez, Alderman Dowd. Given its first reading, I'll assign that to the Budget Review Committee, the Board of Public Works, and schedule a special Board of Aldermen public hearing on Monday, July 28, 2025 at 7 p.m. in the Aldermanic Chamber.
First reading of Resolution R25-193, authorizing the mayor and city treasurer to issue bonds not to exceed $3,800,000 for the design and construction of a wastewater treatment facility vehicle and maintenance garage.
Additional sponsors, Alderman O'Brien, Alderman Lopez, Alderman Clee, Alderman Dowd, and myself. Given its first reading, I'll assign that to the Budget Review Committee, the Board of Public Works, and schedule a special Board of Aldermen public hearing on Monday, July 28, 2025 at 7 p.m. in the Aldermanic Chamber. New business ordinances.
First reading of Ordinance O2560, prohibiting banners, flags, and signs at meetings.
Additional sponsors, Alderman O'Brien, Alderwoman Timmons, myself. Given its first reading, I'll sign that to the... Oh, Alderman Clee. Given its first reading, I'll sign that to the Personnel Administrative Affairs Committee. Period for general public comment. We have two people signed up. Beth Scare.
Beth Scare, 111 East Hobart Street. Nashua Mayor Jim Donches has no problem with permitting the Satanic Temple to march behind him in the Nashua Pride Parade, holding a flag and banner praising Satan. But the pine tree flag is supposedly too controversial to fly on Nashua City Hall Plaza. Last year, Mayor Donches turned down my request to fly the pine tree flag at Nashua City Hall Plaza, saying that it's not in harmony with the message that the city wishes to express and endorse. Does that mean the city endorses Satanism? This year, he gave the green light for the Satanic Temple to march in the Nashua Pride Parade on June 21st, just ahead of the Communist Party for Socialism and Liberation. These are examples of personal whims, not free speech. The parade begins marching from City Hall Plaza, and no one joins the parade without Mayor Donches' approval. So we know what Mayor Donches likes, but what else does he hate besides the pine tree flag? Well, he's also refused to let us raise flags recognizing that women's sports are for human females and recognizing Detransition Awareness Day above City Hall Plaza. He doesn't appear to be overly fond of Israel either. During oral arguments last year for my lawsuit against Nashua for refusing my request to fly the pine tree flag, Nashua's Assistant Corporation Counsel Jonathan Barnes said that the Israeli flag is also too controversial to fly on City Hall Plaza. Nashua's policy claims the City Hall Plaza is not intended to serve as a forum for free expression by the public. Any message sought to be permitted will be allowed only if it is in harmony with city policies and messages that the city wishes to express and endorse. What does this mean in practice? The mayor is using public forums to promote his own radical agenda.
And there is no one else here on the list. Remarks by members of the board.
What's that, man?
Remarks by members?
Yeah, I wasn't going to step into it, but I think I might. Being of Irish-American descent, I'm quite proud of my Irish heritage. And unfortunately, this year, I found out I couldn't fly the Irish flag around, St. Patrick's Day. But I completely understood because some people have put up there controversial. Now, I don't think anybody finds the Irish flag controversial, and I wasn't taken back by it. They earned it. Did you know the number one race of the Congressional Medal of Honor goes to the Irish? Unfortunately, and many of them were posthumously. The Irish have been putting out the fires and keeping law and orders on the street of America for centuries. But unfortunately, because people use our flagpole for their personal gains, the whole community at large, whether you be Irish or French, such as, Bastille Day or something like that, you can't fly your country of origin's national banner. It's too bad it has come to that. I think myself it was a matter of pride, and it was a lot of good giggles down at Peddler's Daughters to see the Irish flag flown on that day. But maybe, perhaps again, the tricolors will fly. We shall see. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. We also didn't fly Juneteenth flag either. So there's a lot of flags we don't fly. But having said that, I just wanted to tell you about the 4th of July celebration. It was fantastic. It really was one of the best shows, if you guys missed it, that we ever had. I was very happy with it, and the Spartans did a wonderful job. So they're going to march in the Thanksgiving Day Parade. I hope you watch it, the Macy's Day Parade, Thanksgiving Day, Thanksgiving morning. But I tell you, they did a wonderful job with the fireworks and the syncing of the Spartans with the fireworks. Thank you, Nashua. I have family here from Connecticut. I said, I told you we had good fireworks. I say, oh, yeah, you really did. So,
I couldn't agree more, Alderman Timmons. Our fireworks display is fabulous. Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll start off with just a somber piece of news. I learned that the Senior Community Service Employment Program, from the United States Labor Department, has ended effective June 30th. That program was designed to get senior citizens who wanted to continue to work and maybe transitioning from one career to another, some on-the-job training. I know it's impacted at least 2 Nashville residents right now. It's just, for me, it's a bit of a pity to see programs that encourage people to work being shuttered, whether it's this program or Job Corps. I understand that some of these programs can have issues related to, certain aspects of allocations of certain things, but the overall mission and goal of these programs is to keep people in the workforce, and that I find that to be disheartening for both programs to no longer exist. It's very sad. Positive news, I too was at the July 4th. I saw many of my colleagues there as well. I saw friends and family from around the city partaking. I saw Alderman Jetty. He thought he was hiding, but I could see him sitting there. He didn't come up to say hello or anything like that, but I yelled to you. But I get it if you didn't hear me. It was loud.
There were so many people yelling to me.
But what a remarkable day for everyone to put aside their differences to celebrate our nation. And then just to see everyone there singing back and forth on different various performances from the band and other performances was just wonderful. And then on the way out, the Nashville Police were very vigilant. They were everywhere, up high, down low, wherever you can find them, keeping the community safe. My daughter now has several autographs on her Silver Knights hat from local police officers after that night. The last thing, so I want to even out the Satanism stuff and just say I will be on it's the Jubilee for the Catholic Church. I will be making my pilgrimage to the Vatican next week with my wife to walk through the holy doors of St. Peter's Cathedral. And I can't wait. So I look forward to being in that moment that takes place over every 25 years.
No, Alderman Lopez.
So I think the Pride Festival was a great event, and I guess maybe some people are a little bit jealous because it was such a well-organized event, and there were so many people that were happy to be there, and they were celebrating such a positive theme. I don't think the mayor actually approved my presence in the parade, and I definitely rode behind him in an inflatable unicorn, so I don't know that he has the fine-toothed discernment that he's being accused of. But I think ultimately it is true that there are a lot of flags that could be raised, but maybe some of the more controversial ones that are representing a very small group of people, if anyone, have kind of ruined it for the rest of us, and that's unfortunate. With regards to the 4th of July, the fireworks were amazing. I think the city probably could have done a better job communicating what was going on top of the garages with some signs because there was a lot of neighborhood confusion regarding whether or not they would be open or not, which is unfortunate. I also want to thank everybody who came out for the Veterans Promise event, 4th of July for Veterans, Representative Goodlander particularly, Alderman Thibodeau, who volunteered with us, Alderman Klee, who helped organize. It was a really good event. We had a lot of really good moments with veterans that, were able to get a free meal, enjoy some music. New Hampshire Underground is an underappreciated jewel in the city for their musical collaboratives. I think it was a great event, and I think it's important for us to remember how important the 4th of July is for bringing people together and building unity. That being said, there was also a tragedy in Texas that I think we all need to be mindful of and respectful of. I have seen some kind of back and forth sniping about partisan politics, and some things, national tragedies, you really can't exploit those just for a talking point. So I hope everybody is mindful of the way that that's impacted a lot of people. There's a lot of families that are grieving because of that.
Amen.
Alderman Senate.
Thank you, Madam President. I was going to save the somber stuff for the end, but since Alderman Lopez brought it up, there's a big part of my heart that still remains in Central Texas. Before I came here to Nashville, I actually lived right in the middle of what they call Flash Flood Alley. And if, we consider extreme weather here to be ice, snow. Extreme weather in the south is a whole other ballgame. And Shoal Creek, Guadalupe River, it can change on a dime. And it's, you know, I was only there till I was 9, but I remember news stories of floods. Fortunately, we were never affected, but it's sad to see. It's impossible to contemplate as a parent what these families are going through. And to Alderman Lopez's point, tragedy is not a political issue. It really isn't. Not now, anyway. We can take the time to point fingers and point the blame later, but when 160 people are still missing, I'm not ready to do it today. On a happier note, I attended the fireworks as well. 30 years of living in Nashua, I've never watched them from inside the stadium before, so that was kind of fun. We're usually out on the ball fields out back. And somebody told me that the Spartans play along with the fireworks every year. It shows you how good a forward-facing horn can be, because you'd never hear the music out back there. So you hear the boom and the bang, but no horns. So that was really exciting. I know it was a really special moment for my family to take that in from a different vantage point and do something a little different. And I always loved the Nashua fireworks display. On some other happier notes, just relative to Ward 7 in the Crown Hill neighborhood, I want to give a special thanks to the Department of Public Works and all the departments that fall within them lately. They've responded quite well to a number of citizen requests that we've had over the past couple of months. And, you know, it's nice to hear people say thank you when they finally see it implemented, but that's not me. I'm just the middleman, and it's them that got it done, and it's nice that it's things that can get done without, we're the Board of Aldermen, but without an act of Congress. So if you're out and about in Crown Hill, we've got dog waste stations now at Roussel Memorial Field. I know that's not going to change things overnight, but maybe that'll make that park a little cleaner for folks that are walking through. And for the first time in my memory, we've got speed limit signs on Harbor Ave, which is really exciting because, geez, Harbor Ave is scary. So thank you to them, the street department, the parks department. They're doing a lot of great work throughout the city. And that's all I've got tonight.
Alderman Tebow.
Thank you, Madam President. Tomorrow, the Telegraph's going to say, if we had a telegraph, we'd say, Donchus loves Satan. All hail Satan.
The union
right?
leader will do it.
To Alderman Lopez's point, you know, I don't think, you know, Mayor Donch, it's the staff that run the Pride Parade. It's not Mayor Donchus. It's a committee. And so, you know, I wouldn't put that on him. And to be honest, Satanists were some of the nicest people you talked to that day. Much nicer than the Social Democrats. You know, so it's...
And the sidewalk.
You know, it was a great parade. It was a great day. The weather was finally decent for one of those parades when in the past it's been pouring rain. So it was a good event. I thought it was a great event. So 4th of July was great. I started the day over in Amherst walking with Congresswoman Goodlander, and then switched over to Merrimack when she went over to Liquid Therapy to just support the Merrimack people in their parade and Congressman Pappas. I did donate to the event because I thought it was an important event to have. I just wish I could have been able to swing that as well. And then the fireworks tonight, which were great. I did see Alderman Jetty there. He did come up and say hi to us, but he bolted fast when he saw all the people Gloria brought over. So I'm just kidding. But no, it was a great event. Fireworks are always good here. I think it's money well spent for the city. It's good. It's good for positive. Positive thing in the city, which, we have that many people in one spot, all behaving and all having a good time and enjoying the fireworks. So I think it was an awesome event, and if you haven't gone before, I'd strongly suggest it. Thank you.
Alderman Clee.
Thank you, Madam President. First, I'd like to echo the words of Alderman Lopez about the National Veterans Promise event for the veterans that was held at Liquid Therapy. Stan and Liquid Therapy did a great job. All the sponsors and so on. I regret that I was only able to stay for half of the time. I had to get home to my dogs that were waiting for me. Being alone these days, it's kind of hard to leave them quite as long as I do. But I also wanted to comment about a subject that we talked about earlier with the change of the disabled veterans credit and the loss of the $750. I'm going to assume that Alderman Jettie may potentially put in a change to that, to add the 750. If he does not, I will do that. In looking at the 2024 numbers, we're looking at 144 disabled veterans and 3 surviving spouses that are currently going to lose $750, potentially. Again, based on conversation that we had, we don't know exactly how this is going to fit. Will they lose half of it? Will they lose all of it? We don't know how this is going to fall into place. It does go into effect 60 days after she signed it, but do they lose the other half of it? Will they lose the whole thing? We don't know. I think we need some clarification on it. But in the meantime, I'm going on record to say that I will either sponsor or co-sponsor or work with any other alderman who goes forward with it, because this is 147 people that are losing that credit. So, thank you.
Alderman Dowd.
Just real quick, I wasn't going to let it fly, but there was an inference from somebody speaking tonight that teachers only work 7 hours a day. Obviously, they don't know what the hell's going on in our schools. I have 2 daughters that are teachers, neither one in Nashua, but I can tell you, they work 10-hour days. And he also didn't realize that they are working during the summer, too. We have school projects going on right now, and you see the teachers coming in and doing stuff in their classroom, even though technically, according to him, they're not getting paid. So teachers do work a lot more than 7 hours a day, and if you don't know that, you should go visit a school.
Committee announcements. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President. Tomorrow night at 6 p.m., 1800, for you military junkies, there's a joint meeting of the Committee of Infrastructure and Police Commission.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Thank you, Madam President. Tomorrow at 12 o'clock at Mulberry Street is the Health Committee meeting.
Alderman Moran.
Thank you, Madam President. Next week's PEDC has been canceled. Myself and Vice Chair GOV are out of town, and there are other vacations. It's impossible to get a quorum.
Alderman Lopez.
July 21st, we have a meeting of the Human Affairs Committee. A couple of items were forwarded from tonight's meeting. We were also going to be getting a presentation and update from Director Bagley about the outreach services for unsheltered people.
This side. Okay. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to make the motion that the July 8, 2025 meeting of the Board of Aldermen be adjourned by roll call.
The motion is to adjourn. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes.
Alderman Moran.
Yes.
Alderman Thibodeau.
Yes.
Alderman Govea.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
No.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
President Wilshire.
Yes.
You have 12 yeas, 1 nay.
We are adjourned at 9:48, and I just want to thank our legislative manager for holding down the meeting tonight for us.
Great job.
Thank you.